I can start with the basics. At the centerpiece of all great real estate is an amazing location. What makes an amazing location? It's demand. Demand makes an amazing location. You can have a lot of great spots that you might think are great, but if nobody else wants it, it doesn't have an economic demand, it's not a great real estate location from an investment perspective. So you have to want and figure out how to get what everybody else wants.
Greg is my coach and mentor. He is amazing. Just a brief bio. I probably won't do you justice, Greg.
I'm sure it will be overkill, Shona.
Greg is an outside cat forever. He's been a lifelong entrepreneur. He's got years of experience. He's passionate about family, the outdoors, and aviation, as you can see from his background. He's taught acquisition, finance, negotiation, and the philosophy of success at the Seattle Pacific University. And he's spoken around the world. His goal is to disrupt and drive positive change, living a life of purpose and passion. So I think everyone knows Greg is my coach and mentor. Greg, let's just dive right into it. This group has a lot of newer investors. The question I get a lot is, what makes a good property? How to analyze that. So I'd love to hear your 2 cents on that.
And we'll cover world peace at the same time, because that question is an enormous question. The beauty of real estate, and this is one of those things that you're going to have to just keep me on task and directed, because a question like that, you'd have to come at it from a lot of different angles. I can start with the basics. At the centerpiece of all great real estate is an amazing location. What makes an amazing location? It's demand. Demand makes an amazing location. You can have a lot of great spots that you might think are great, but if nobody else wants it, it doesn't have an economic demand, it's not a great real estate location from an investment perspective. So you have to want and figure out how to get what everybody else wants. Rare is important in this equation. All right, so then there's a way of slicing it up into all kinds of different product types and different ways of evaluating what makes a great piece of real estate, because there's all kinds of different product types. What makes a great single family home is very different than what makes a great light industrial zone piece of property. And so we've got to understand that real estate has a lot of different utility, a lot of different faces, a lot of different uses. And so that's why the real estate's been very fractionalized into specialists that really get to know a specific product type really well, a specific location very well, and of course the surrounding of that location, of where that real estate is, the next layer out of services and districts and schools and shopping and access and employment and on. So is the city a demand city? Is the major metropolitan area something that people are moving toward and building up? And does it have an economic base that's diverse and wide and vibrant? And we can just keep going on and on. From an investor's standpoint, I want to look at it and know that there's predictable profit. I want to know that there's a way that I can structure this that creates an income stream way beyond the cost of ownership. And again, it could be a personal use property that follows none of those rules. I've owned some properties out in the middle of nowhere that I built a ranch on that are just for me. I love it. It has nothing to do with real estate investing. Investing follows rules, like rules of physics. And so demand is the centerpiece of that. And then we get into the deal structuring itself is also the next layer of what you try to create in any great real estate transaction. Third component, expandability. Is there something I can do there to that piece of real estate? Once I own a demand piece of real estate, once I've deal structured it properly, now, is there something I can do to change the picture to a higher, better, more profitable, more economically viable picture than where I started? That expandability is the third principle of what makes a great piece of real estate. Therefore, if you think about it, buying a tract house in a brand new housing development, nothing I can do. It's landscaped, the front door is painted, it's brand new. You walk in the door, what are you going to do? Hang pictures? New is not for you. Now I can create a new building, and I've built many where there used to be a little single family home, gets torn down, and 40 units are built there. Okay, now I've changed the picture, and we take it from there. Zoning changes, use changes, plat changes, all kinds of different forms of expandability. So if you put that all in one sentence, what makes a great piece of real estate? Location, deal structuring terms, expandability. There you go. That's the best I can do in under 3 minutes.
That was perfect. Yeah, I think, a lot of times people ask me, do I invest out of state? And I don't know the areas that might cash flow great, but I don't know if it's in demand so that's when I think about going out of state, I like being in my own backyard. So I'm sure you get asked that a lot too. Do you have an answer for that?
Mm-hmm. You're using a lot of, you see, when it's in your backyard, you're using your knowledge of a city, your knowledge of districts, your knowledge of demand locations, your knowledge of traffic flow, and all sorts of various overlays that you automatically put in charge. When you go out of state, it takes a while to know those things, and controlling the asset and controlling the decisions within the asset are critically important. Said a different way, taking somebody else's word, especially somebody that gets paid if you go there, you see, now that I can't tell you how many times I've heard the broker told me this, the broker told me that, they said this, they said that, and you took it and you took their word for it, and you went all in, and it turns out that they weren't exactly right about that. And whose fault is that? It's your fault, because ultimately we make our own decisions. And so when buying out of state, I've bought a lot of real estate out of state, but I really take the time and energy to go there, to know it. It also puts a premium on your network. You and I, Shona, being connected to the power player community, if somebody said, oh, I've got a piece of property and fill in the blank, my first call is to one of my very students that's going to, because they're trained to know exactly what to look for, they're power players, and I can get a full briefing on that property within 24 hours of exactly, and I do that literally every week. I'm talking to somebody about something I've heard here. Hey, check it out and give me your eyes on it. And they'll get back with the 10-point question filled out in detail. And this rate's a 23 out of 30. I think that this is something that somebody needs to get all over right now. Or it may come back that, no, this isn't all that in a bag of chips. It's about a 14 on the scale, and I don't know who's telling you this or that, but no is the answer. And so trained eyes and ears in a community that you're looking to buy real estate, that have no other agenda. They're not getting paid to tell you anything. They are your comrades. They are a part of the same fraternity. They give as much as they want to receive. That's this amazing community of power players. You know it. I know it. I'm blessed to be a part of it. So are you. We can utilize that when going out of state. Yeah, and do. I'm catching up by Thursday morning. And the 3 cities I'm at next week, it's a gathering of power players that know more about that city than I do. And that's awesome. Destin, Tampa, Orlando, San Antonio. That's next week.
That is so true. Community is really everything, and this is a team sport. It is, yeah, an education. The power of power players has blown my mind. So I think why people often want to go out of state is they see this cash flow number and they think they can't afford to buy in their own backyard. I hear that a lot, right? And so that's where involving the seller and financing, it's a huge topic, but just pique our interest.
Right. I've been buying real estate in the most high demand locations of the greater Seattle area my entire life. Almost 50 years I've been at it. And I've watched values do what values do. Rents also do what they do. So sometimes it can be a bit of a relative offset. But overriding all of that preconception of what you can and can't do, deal structuring is at the centerpiece of putting deals together in ways that do work. And I hear all day long what can't be done. And so this is also the right brain mindset component, that no one will ever ask for what they think is impossible. And so I don't do that either. I have a mindset around possibility, and I move in with a deal structure that serves the seller, that also is reverse engineered to meet all my entrepreneurial objectives. And I propose it, and I don't say yes or no. I let them say yes or no. I let them direct it. And this is where the left and right brain of our business have to be highly educated and highly tuned to get the kind of answers and results we're looking for, both left and right brain. Everybody thinks real estate is just left brain math and this and that and the other thing. I got to tell you, that's crazy. Yes, there's a ton of it. I've taught hundreds and hundreds of hours of finance. But the right brain side, we think we know it. I've heard people say, I have no problem talking to people. And of course, my response is, what in the world does that have to do with the art form of negotiation? What does talking to people have to do with negotiating an end conclusion? Virtually nothing. Matter of fact, talking is what you don't want to do. You want to listen and understand the language of your audience and handcraft a proposition so that it sounds like it's coming from their own mind, their own voice. This is negotiation, where I get everything I'm looking for in a transaction. But if you were to ask them, it didn't really come from me, it came from them. It's not about, oh, here's what I want. We live in a world that puts proposals together and this is how it works for me. Immediately I'm on the defense. Screw you. Hey, this is what it works for me. And it's bangs, two rams on a ridge pounding heads. That's not the art form of negotiation. Nobody ever hears what I want out of a situation. It's all, how can I, in ways that you may not have thought of, get you exactly what you want, and even better than you were shooting for. Even better, because I'm educated. A surgeon is going to do a better job of fixing something internally in your body than an electrician, right? Mm-hmm. He knows more, therefore he does a better job, right? And knowing your left and right brain in this business is how we can go into areas that look like you can't structure something there that would cash flow. But knowing how to do that is how it gets done. You only know what you know. And if you think that, oh, hey, with prevailing rates at a bank, I'm going to go have to put 30 or 40% down. I'm going to have to underwrite it at a 1:3 debt coverage ratio. I'm going to have to go in. And then rates, of course, now are 6.7 amortized over 20 years. And oh, it doesn't pencil. Therefore, it can't be done. I go, let's change a few things. How about nothing down? Nothing. How about a deal structure that allows for nothing down? How about the prevailing rate with who I lend money from, more like 4.5% to 5%? How about an interest only or more payment? How about an incremental step of interest, maybe starting as low as 3 up to 5%? How about a deferral of accrued interest because there's nothing stabilized or performing yet? How about this? How about that? How about this? Then we start inserting first right of refusal clauses. We start inserting subordination agreements. We start inserting substitution of collateral clauses, and first all of the lettuce and tomatoes, as we affectionately call it. Now I'm creating something that is a life all to its own beyond the world of the real estate I'm buying. Now I'm into two-dimensional monetization of an asset, not just one. And when we add third and fourth layers of thinking of how we can take one asset and actually create 3 or 4 different monetizations within the structure we're creating, now it's a combination of all those things working together. Are we making money on this or not? It's not just simple lineal one-dimensional stuff. We've got to start layering ways of making money on a deal to make certain deals really work in cash flow. I probably just confused everybody to death because this is the, and Shona, this is the challenge of doing snippet education, is that it's like reading the back of the book and that's it. But you, for example, have been to Power Players, which is 100-hour intensive, several times.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so you see, it's a commitment to know this in a very deep and important way, and then take it to somebody's living room like you were today and start knowing how to have the conversation, pulling the knot apart and saying, I've got a few ideas to consider that I think, given what you've told me, would help you. And there you go. Did I answer the question?
I think so. It really comes back to mindset and having the toolbox of things. And yeah, you really have to. I think education, I'm not just saying that to sell it. Like, I firmly believe that it's really important. And the reason I did this was because I felt like there was so much emphasis on flipping and wholesaling and not a lot on strategy and buying and hold. And this is my soapbox, but she's got assets. I want people to own assets. And I feel like there's a lot of just wholesaling and flipping, and that does not get you down the road.
It's Shona, I've been privileged to speak to every major real estate investment group in this country, some of them multiple times. And I would tell you that 95% of every room of investors that I talk to, it's wholesaling or flipping. That's what real estate investing means. But I'm telling you, that can be a lucrative taxable income. It can be a flexible job. It can be profitable. It'll never create wealth, not even. Matter of fact, it's much like the brokerage world. You can make a lot of money in commissions, and you just got to keep going. You got to keep going. And the beauty of being a real estate entrepreneur is that when you truly understand the levels of how you can purchase something with all of the expandability and the layers of ability to monetize it, the layers of ability. You add the concepts of leverage, you add the concepts of scalability to these tools, and truly it can be a one and done given people's normal objectives. What do I mean by normal objectives? I don't know anybody in the world that wouldn't want an asset that throws out a net positive cash flow. And let's just use true middle of the road, nothing crazy exciting numbers, but one deal done correctly that throws out $5,000 or $6,000 a month. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, is that wealth? No. Is everybody just going to live in a life of luxury? No. But what you've done for yourself now is you've bought yourself the freedom of time. Because now, if you can figure out how to scrape by and just live on that, now you can focus. You don't get to work until you don't have to work. Now you don't have to work. Now you get to go do what you want to do. And if you take that number to 10 or 20,000 a month, okay, now most people in this country, if they had a passive 10 or 20,000 a month coming in, are free to go think about doing what they really should do. Let it sit there correctly doing its thing over time. Principals going down, assets going up, rents are going up, financing's fixed, the number gets bigger and bigger. And look it up 15 years from now, and there's a lot of equity and there's more cash flow. Sure, it's taken a little management along the way, but not that big a deal. And you can hire that out. The point I'm making is that I've seen people work their entire life from literally young adults all the way to 65, and their entire retirement income after all those years, one building purchased correctly produces way more. And so I tell people, even if you don't want to get into this, like this is your life, make the investment to know what the hell you're doing. And if you buy one building a year for 10 years and hang on to it, sure, a little bit of weekend work, sure, just hang on to it. You will retire in the top 1/4% of all people in the country. But they've got to be done right. Real estate has two gears, forward and reverse, and they both move very quickly. Very quickly. And it's not just the real estate, it's the deal structuring. When you sign on for hundreds of thousands of dollars of money to repay, you better have a rig that's going to carry that. And then some. If it doesn't, it's left on you to figure it out. And wow, this all is about analyzing the deal structuring and the debt you're signing on for. Does it have shock absorbers built into it? Can it stand the unknowns of the future? The if-then scenarios, are they built into your negotiation? Those sorts of things are what deal structuring is about. And this is the science of becoming a really educated real estate entrepreneur. There's no shortcuts. The metaphor I use, I don't even know if I can see it, but if maybe you can see a tail rudder back there somewhere. I'm sitting in a hangar right now, and there's a very complex airplane back there. Pressurized, multi-engine, tractable gear. It's the real deal. You don't just get to show up and say, oh, this looks like fun. Let's go take this out tonight. You don't get to do that. A few thousand hours of training and instruction and about 20 tests, you could have a multi-engine instrument, commercial, high altitude, high performance rating. And then if you get type rated in that plane, maybe you could fly it. But there's no shortcuts. You either have it or you don't. And this is, to me, it's not selling education. It's just I'm being a realist here. There's so much at stake, just like the metaphor. When you start buying real estate and you don't know what you're doing, and you're borrowing other people's money, and you're borrowing this and that and the other thing, when the thing crashes, it doesn't just crash and kill you. It kills everybody you're dealing with. So it puts a premium on knowing what you're doing. Okay. I hope that answered that question.
I'm just trying to bring it back to context here. I feel like there is a lot of fear around buying your first property, and like when you have the tools and you have the right, it's calculated risk, but it takes that fear away. And I think it is a big risk, but it's calculated. And if you do it right, you're going to be okay. But you need that education and you need to understand what you're doing, because done wrong, right? It's worse than not having anything, but it is.
Well, there's the risk of non-action too, right? We all kind of hang back like, ooh, I don't know about this. It's pretty risky. And yet, as you said, as you work hard to mitigate what we perceive the risk with knowledge and education, okay, now if we don't go, there's the risk of regret. And so we're going to risk whether we stay or go. It's just mitigating it properly. And so I think this is where, honestly, I think that there's many occasions where I get to work with people who it's like they rent my confidence. Because I'll tell you a funny story. When I was first learning to fly 25 years ago, there's a guy with 25,000-hour jet pilot 2 doors down from my hangar, and I was just like, anytime you go flying, I want to go with you. I just want to learn. He says, okay. One time he says, okay, I'm leaving in 2 minutes. And I run down to the hangar. I jump in the plane. This is his business, is aviation. And we jump in this plane, and there was a seatbelt. That was good. But there were wires hanging everywhere from this plane. The whole dashboard was like all apart and this and that. And he goes, okay, let's go. Blah, blah, blah. And the guy's so good. He's just talking to tower and taking off. And next thing, we're airborne. And, I said, Bob, what are we doing? He says, we're just doing a quick smoke test. And I said, a smoke test? What is that? He says, we're just going to see if the plane catches on fire. I said, oh, really? I said, should I be worried? And he says, I'll tell you what, you just keep a look at my face. If I look worried, then you should be really worried. But I'm not worried, and I don't think I'm going to get worried. And this is what I do, and I'm not really worried. And it was just like nothing to him. Nothing. Zipping around and testing this and flipping switches on, and he's just doing things so fast, I don't even know what he's doing. But he never looked worried because he was so competent. And so it put me at ease. And hey, he brought me back to ground. I don't even know what he did. But hey, next thing you know, I'm walking out of the plane. It all went well. Be around people that know more than you. It's a beautiful thing what you're doing for people. You're an expert in midterm rentals. You've educated yourself in acquisition, both left and right brain. So people being around you are going to feel that confidence and learn. It's being a part of a group. This isn't a Lone Ranger sport. You can learn so much from being around the right people.
Yeah, and just a testament to the borrowing the confidence. Like, you've told me what to do, and I'm like, Greg told me, and I do it, and it works. And it's just having someone. Sometimes you need that direction. I would not be where I am without your guidance on that. So I really appreciate it. And the power of coaching and mentorship and community and education, I think, is so important. And it's something I didn't take that seriously before I was in real estate, but this is such a big toolbox that I've realized it's really important. Just however you learn, if it's a YouTube video or books or whatever it is, it's really important. So,
it is. It is. You have to love being a student of the game. I've been obsessed with the acquisition of real property, the development of real property for 48 years. It's all I've ever done. And this is year 48 for me, full time. I've never had a job, ever. This is it. And I've loved it. I've loved the study of it. I've loved the evolution of it. It's such a fantastic sport. Think about it. 10 years ago, nobody knew what Airbnb was. What? What's that? What the hell? VRBO? What? It's the changing components of growth of neighborhoods and cities and zoning and master plans and comprehensive plans and all of the demand on marketplace changes. And then, of course, add administrations and economies and things fluctuating up and down. And it's such a dynamic, changing world that it's a new day on the job. It's every day. You walk out and okay, look at the lay of the land. Where are we at? What are the attitudes and beliefs of the audience we're about to meet? Their mindset, right? What's the direction that momentum is going? Are we bullish? Are we excited? Are we fearful as a country? Is it COVID? Is it war? Is it all these things? It's just like the various markets. It all sets the playing field for the day. And then we go out in a moving set of conditions, right? And we do our best. This isn't bowling. We're at the same width of lane, the same length. The pins are exactly the same way. It's not bowling, it's golf. Every shot you take is not like any you've ever taken before. And so this is where it takes a high level of confidence and competence to read the conditions of audience and economies and demand and put it all together to make the right decisions in the right plays that get a project from acquisition through stabilization into long-term ownership. That's the goal. And sure, there are properties. Think of a chessboard. There are properties that are the pawns in the game. They're in the game, but they're out almost immediately, right? Mm-hmm. They're the first to get picked off, right? And they're the assignments and the flips. But then there's the cycle hold row, more valuable, the 7 to 10 year hold row, that you're developing something. You're letting something mature. You're waiting for zoning changes or use changes. You're letting something grow and ferment a bit. And then, of course, then there's the back row that once established, you'll never sell it. It's there. It's your kings and queens. It's the anchor point of your portfolio. And sure, you may come into that and upgrade a piece of the financing, but it stays there. It's there for the long haul. And if you can think of creating that back row is the goal. And yes, ins and outs can serve a bigger acquisition. But if that's your only game, if you never get off the front lines, you're going to eventually die. Think of those old Civil War things where they run in, they're point blank. And man, I want to be about 2 or 3 rows back. So that's how I've looked at acquisition. And of course, all these various different product types. Today, the changes in landlord-tenant law, if you look at especially the West Coast, and politics, which sort of pushes an agenda of landlord-tenant law. It's certainly changed an attitude around what kind of product type you might want to be in. Providing single-family long-term housing, you might be more vulnerable than midterm or short-term rental. Midterm corporate rental, short-term nightly rental. We're not providing a long-term lease. We're a little less or a little more insulated to several things that long-term landlord-tenant law. And of course, if we were providing dirt hookups like mobile home parks or RV parks, or then no one lives there, RV storage, other forms of storage, light industrial, commercial, retail, all of these things insulate us even more from political changes. And so you adjust your strategy. You call a different play. You come up to the line, you read the defense and go, okay, we're not running there. We're going to run here. There's a lot of big guys here that look mean. Let's go over here. And that's the fun of this sport, is that we're always calling plays, and depending on our years of wisdom and expertise to make the right call. So that was
so
a
good.
sentence, by the way. That was just one sentence.
I had this vision of kind of vintages of wine when you're talking about your portfolio management.
Yes. Why not? That's a perfect.
And I just want to stress, like, I've learned so much about the power of leverage, and I did it way back with HELOCs in a very like rudimentary way. But the sooner you start, the more you have those building blocks of leverage, and that to me is the power of real estate too. Just that.
It is. There, I tell people, Shona, that there's 2 words that, if you're serious about this, you would go to the craft store and you'd get the big letters, the 8-inch letters, and get some glitter to sparkle them up a little bit, and put 2 words right above your workplace. One, leverage; the other, scalability. Just look at them, study them, know them. The concept of leverageable equity. It has to be a bloodstream, that equity and cash flow create a garage for money. If you have a property with equity and cash flow, you've created a garage that will house money. And so now, with that leverageable equity, knowing how to leverage and use that garage and borrow against your leverageable equity to take that borrowed money, which is not taxable, to buy more and bigger real estate. Not just more, but more doors, more pads, more square feet, because now we're starting to introduce the next word, which is scalability. If you've got a little cottage and you rent it out and you raise rent on that college $50 a month, okay, that's great. And that does create a little bit of cash flow, and it automatically makes the property worth a little more, and therefore you've increased your garage. But let's say that $50 rent raise was on a 300 pad RV park. And all of a sudden you got another $50 a month out of each pad. You can do the math.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden you've created a much bigger amount of cash flow in the same little rent raise, but a lot of doors, a lot of pads. And that, of course, changes the value. It changes the size of the garage. So now you can go borrow more money. And how do you borrow money? What's the best place you'll ever borrow money? If you needed money more than any other time in your life, oh my God, everybody thinks, I got to go sell something. I got to sell something. No, it's just the opposite. I got to go buy something. Because deal structuring is you make money on the buy, and you're using the garages of leverageable equity you've built up. And so it's almost like counterintuitive, the way to really go about this with knowledge at every layer. Going about it correctly is almost the opposite of what people doing. I can't even think of, other than food, what is the last thing I've bought that didn't have the purpose of creating more? And if I can't create an income stream out of it, I only buy it if I pay cash for it and I own it. And even that, though, we're used to say, like a car, you don't rent out your car, and therefore you should own it free and clear. And I agree with that. Now with Turo, I have students that own 5 or 6 cars, and brand new cars. And hey, here's what the payment is on this car, an amortized payment, but they park it, and the income from the car is twice what their payment is. And within 3 years, they own the car free and clear. And then it's not a lot different than real estate.
Mm-hmm.
It's having philosophy around investment mentality, not consumerism. I've never owned anything, period, that wasn't free and clear, that wasn't an income producing piece of real estate. If I have debt on it, the income is more than the debt. It's that simple. So furniture and cars and boats and airplanes and whatever. No, they've got to be free and clear. And so that getting in this is rich dad, poor dad thinking. It's thinking about investment every way we go. And in my dreams, one of these days, I'm going to take very complicated concepts and I'm gonna teach a class to kids who are 10 to 15 years old and just say, hey, let's start thinking about money and work and independence and all those things at an early age. Because if you get it down here, when you've got absolutely nothing and nothing to lose, wouldn't that be just awesome? You just blend it on in. Yeah.
If I knew this back in the day, what I know now, I'd be in a I probably wouldn't be here right now.
I have a power player, one of your fraternity members who took power players first when she was 16. And by the time she came back to take it again at age 18, she was already worth $3.5 million. So how's that? That's pretty cool. Taking it twice already, and she's not even 19.
I've got my son lined up to get.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, really cool.
Oh, I don't know how to put a pin on this. It's such a go on forever. I guess if there's any advice you could give someone that's just starting out, what would you tell them? Like, clearly, there's a lot of power in real estate, and you got to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm. I think I could give a few things just like in order that would really help anybody. Okay. One, identify those people that are doing this around you and really have a candid conversation of where they're at and what's working and what isn't. Understand what you're getting into. Okay. Number two, among those people you look at, find people who are willing to teach you, because just because they're doing it and just because they know it doesn't mean they want to or can teach what they do. So find somebody to teach you. Three, identify the location that you're looking for based on demand. Number four, know the zoning, in, out, left, forwards, backwards. Not only what it is, but any zoning changes, any overlays, any comprehensive plans that show zoning changes in the future. Next, go look at existing product type that is the type of product type you want to get into. If you want to buy some small multiplexes or apartments, you've got to know every apartment around you and every apartment owner around you, and ask all kinds of questions to know the market, to know how people do things, to know truly what people want in your terms of your tenants. Know what you're doing. If you want to be a pilot, hang out at the airport, right? That's where you got to be, right? And then you start hitting the streets and asking ridiculous questions of proposition. You identify what you want and you ask for it. You ask for it in the form of letters. You ask for it in the form of meeting where the seller is and just point blanking them and asking, would you consider selling this property to me? You get it in motion. At a certain point, your education and desire has to take action. And I'm not saying immediately, I'm saying get some ground school, get some basics, get some good training. But at a certain point, you got to say, now the rest of my training is going to be in motion. I'm going to go get my ass kicked. Court time. You and I have had this discussion. Is, hey, how's this all going to change? When you're in 3 living rooms a day for a couple of years, you're going to now understand what that is. It gets easier and you get better and better, and you start getting deals signed around. This is a shameless plug, but twice a year, that's not a lot. 2 times a year, I open the doors to this very hangar, and it's come one, come all. No charge. It's on me. I buy the lunch, the drinks, and you might even leave with the hat. You know what I mean? And I will wring myself out like a shop towel for 9 hours straight, giving you everything I could possibly teach you in a day. And I'll be the first to tell you before I start that this is absolutely not enough. But it's going to be a real and raw engagement as to what this is all about. It's the no bullshit day. You want to do this and you want to get good at it? Okay, here's what it takes. Here's the tools. It's in an outline. It's in an order. Picture's worth 1,000 words. I'll put a lot of case studies up there of how I do what I do. And that day, there's one in the spring and there's one in the fall. And so the spring day is coming up, March 2nd. If you wanted to go, you could go on Facebook, look up A Day at the Hangar, March 2nd. I know you'll be here. And it's a great reunion of a lot of power players that come from around the country. But it's everybody who wants to come. You do need to register because this hangar, we've learned, holds 300 people, and that's it. And we've packed it every single time. Every time it feels weird with people just packed in here. But it's a great day, March 2nd, A Day at the Hangar. We do one in the spring, one in the fall. I say that you could go look into your local real estate investment group. And quite honestly, I think what I'd rather have people do, Shona, is I'd rather have them call you and say, hey, is there a power player in wherever they live that's leading a meetup or a real estate investment group? Because quite honestly, there's a lot of real estate investment groups that are just like walking into a nursing home. It just feels like this is just rehashed crap that isn't doing anybody any good. But boy, I'll tell you, you show up at Rob Drum's group in Birmingham, or you show up at Shallon and Jordan's group in South Carolina, or you show up at Nikita's group in Raleigh, and the training that you're giving in Portland, in Neil and Alyssa and the Rare Bird Boys, and there's power players. There's 1,800 of them in this country, and they are stirring it up in every city in this country. And it is rubber meets the road, the real deal, and they're givers. Through Shona, connect with power players in the country because they will help you. They'll tell you where to go, that you're going to really learn something that is useful and street smart.
I can't emphasize that enough. I still remember the time I went to a networking event and there were case studies of your students, and I was like, what? Wait, what do you know? Right. And I had just done all this training and I thought I was educated. It's great. It's a ton of value. You leave extremely inspired, and I just think education and community is so important, and Greg attracts an amazing tribe. If you are remotely available, it's an opportunity. So Greg, and I know you have a podcast too. If you want to plug that, it's great. I'm so glad it's available.
I will do that with great appreciation because you are one I've already interviewed for this podcast, and they do air every 2 weeks. So we've gotten a few edited and ready to go. But you could go to any of the platforms, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and just type in the Greg Pinneo podcast. And I've been asked to do this podcast for so many years now. And what tipped it over for me was that I'm a dad. I've got a lot of kids. And the thought that when I'm gone, that Ryan could hand a digital book to my kids and say, hey, here's the greatest hits album. Here's a few hundred people that have been interviewed, that if you could just take one or two things out of every one of those interviews, which, oh my God, you could, trust me, they're just like pure gold. Yours was just pure gold. And you put it all together, hell, my work here is done. these kids. They're such accomplished, amazing, incredible people who take life seriously, all of life seriously. They lean into it passionately and go after it, just like you. And what a treat. It's just a highlight when I get to sit down and have an interview that day. I'm on a high the rest of the day because it's just listening to the stories of people's creativity and their resolve and where they came from and how they put it all together and what got them into this and what they do. And it's just absolutely fascinating to me. It's like reading biographies of amazing people, which is my favorite thing to do. It's like listening to them. They're right here telling you their biographies. Anyway, yeah, the Greg Pinneo podcast, and it's been really well received. And I feel very humbled that after all these years of teaching, that I really do know people who are just extraordinary in every corner of life. 2 nights ago, I got this spontaneous thing. Hey, Cap, I don't know if you're in town or not, but you've always asked that if I ever have a dance recital, to let you know when, because it's Saturday night at 8:00. I've got your name on a list, tickets on me if you want to show up. And this particular power player, this student, has danced all over the world in ballet company all over the world. Mikhail Baryshnikov, she's danced with Mikhail Baryshnikov. That's pretty heady. And then just for fun, on a whim, she, like literally last minute, tried out for the Seattle Seagulls and of course got on the team and is, so it's not just one kind of dance, it's every kind of dance. And this is just that part of her life. So accomplished in every other part, like amazing. Well, anyway, I showed up and I just sat there in awe. It's like the kids I have, like you. Every parent wants to eat their kids' dust. And I'm eating dust these days in handfuls with all of these great people all over the country. So it's really pretty exciting to be an old guy like me and eating kids' dust. It's heaven. So thank you for being on the podcast, and they'll see you at some point. You're edited, you're ready to go. So
oh my gosh, I'm a little nervous, but yeah, so everyone, if you a lot of people typed in the hangar. I'll follow up with everyone. So Greg, if you have a little more time for some Q&A, I'm sure people have questions. We can dive into that. I think anything's on the table. So thank you. Yeah. This is an opportunity, you guys, so take advantage of it. I've learned a lot from Greg, and yeah. Let's see. Yeah, but I think the toolbox of real estate and education, it's so important. And I've done a lot of training, and Greg has strategies, toolbox I've never come across before. So very grateful.
Well,
yeah.
Thank you, Shona. There's so much to know. So I do look for those who want to be a student of the game, because it's a huge commitment. It's like a language.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the good stuff. That's what makes it so great. Yeah.
Yeah. And just when you think you've got a handle on it, we'll give people a few minutes. Again, if anyone is looking, I don't know, I will connect anyone that's looking to connect with someone that's maybe been to Power Players. I will make those connections with Ryan. So let's just leave a comment. So Melanie is asking, how does one become a Power Player?
Power Players is an intensive, Melanie. Where is Melanie from?
I don't know, Melanie. Do you want to put where you're from? Haven't seen a response. She might listen to the replay, so I will if you want to. Let's see if she responds. Okay. Yeah. Oh, it looks like
Pittsburgh. Okay. Trent and Danny Seaman are power players in Pittsburgh. They bought many hundreds of homes in Pittsburgh. I guess the point I wanted to make there is that as if you wanted to give me a call or Ryan, we could get you their name and number, because I like people to meet those who've been through this fraternity, who know that, who truly know that, what it's about. And then you can see it for yourself, that they've taken these skills and here's what they've done in your city, right? And so I can certainly give anybody references of power players in any city they're in. Every major city in this country has power players stirring it up. It's almost always through some kind of referral that somebody hears about power players. And then you do fill out a pretty extensive intake form that I read through and look at. And I can tell you what I look for is there's no assholes in power players, not like in life. I screen them. And so I look for people wanting to give as much as they want to receive. And so if I think somebody's a giver, they truly have the right reasons for wanting to know this stuff and have a life of impact, then I'm an investor. I'm going to invest in you, and because I know what you're going to do with it. And so it's a process of going through that, and we talk about your intake form, and then you are better up for the next power players. There's only 2 power players a year, one in January, one in late July. And so there's never more than 50 students at any one power players. And so it's a great, amazing fraternity. But it's not like you've got to have all this experience. Matter of fact, sometimes no experience is better, because I'm not having to get you out of your own way. Sometimes it's what we think we know for sure that just ain't right. Isn't that Mark Twain that said that? Right. And so, yeah. And then there's a big block of education that comes with power players that I want you to listen to carefully before the event. So you come in having really digested this block of education. So we come in with a lot of momentum, a lot of the vocabulary, a lot of things that we're going to address. You got a pace and a walking start coming in, and then we go for it. Power players, the event itself is 4 very long days, and it's an intensive, meaning people think long days. I'm talking 5 in the morning till 1 in the morning kind of days. We're here to get it done, left and right brain, back and forth. And it's a life experience. It's not just a seminar you sit and take notes. There you go. That's a pretty good picture there.
Greg, should they just comment power players and we'll connect you with what's the best way?
I don't mind even giving my phone number out.
Okay,
my phone number is everywhere. 206-226-7777. 206-226-7777. That's the only number I have. And you could call me directly and ask me anything you want to ask me. I answer my phone. And yeah.
You really do. I remember putting my name down on a paper. I thought he'll never call me. He's way too busy and important.
Oh no! I said I'd call you. I'm going to call you. Just if you want a visual of my world, can you see that? This is like this week's people I've got to call.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'll get to it. I use the unforgiving minute. Yeah.
Yeah. Take him up on that. Greg is amazing. He will not sell you on anything. If you're fit for it, I feel
I talk as many people out of power players as into power players. If I'm pushing, because I really, this is something you got to really want to do it really right and really dig in. And so it's why everybody that has gone through Power Players is doing what you're doing, Shona, in every city. They're leading. They're not messing around with this. There's 102 Power Players in Portland, in that Portland area. Over 8,000 doors represented in Portland from those Power Players. So think about that.
Yeah.
And I know all of them. People think, how can you know all these people? Because it's an intensive. And when you're that direct and when you're that one-on-one and you're really digging in with each other, you never forget these people and we stay in touch. There's an annual alumni gathering of Power Players that's Power Players only. Wow. How cool is that? So it's an amazing fraternity. If you come to the day at the hangar, if you're brand new to this, you'll have a big white name tag. And if you're a Power Player, you have a yellow one. And it's not like people are any different, but these people have truly leaned into wanting to know this stuff in a whole different level. Isn't that great? Wouldn't it be great if the world just identified itself, that everything you wanted to do, somebody's wearing a color tag, say they take it seriously, just talk to them. It's really cool.
Yeah. And just having been a little bit behind the scenes at the last one, there's a lot of intention that goes into it. Yeah, it's really dimensional, what the word is. Yeah.
Very.
But Greg, that list is really, I don't know if that's just like a dot on your day.
Yeah, but this is where, if you want to do extraordinary in life, you have to start thinking differently about everything. I talked to somebody yesterday that just in casual, how's things going? Oh man, I'm a little whipped today because I had to work overtime yesterday, 8.5 hours. I said, 8.5 hours of overtime? No, just I had to work, instead of 8, I had to work 8.5. So I'm a little whipped. And I honestly, I just felt like I don't even know what to say right now. I think I'll say nothing because I only work half days, Shona. And I found that it really doesn't matter what 12 hours you work, the first 12 or the last 12, just so you work half days, right? And I know you get it. Here you are. People lock out at 3:30 and they come home and they've eaten dinner by now. You're still on it. You're still pressing. But that's why the world is not equal. There's a few of the mad ones who really want to, as Kerouac says, never yawn or say an uninteresting word. And I'm so used to that, I don't even know how to relate to the overtime of a half hour. What? What? So we think differently. We do differently. And you want to be around those people. Change your circle, it'll change your life. Yeah.
That's really true.
Yeah.
Let's just do a couple questions. I know it's getting late, Greg. Some of these I don't know if you can answer on the fly.
Sure.
So Jenny is asking, what do you think the first step would be for transitioning from self-funded deals to raising capital to get into small multifamily?
Jenny, the first thing I'm always going to look at is, does this particular seller have equity in this property? Is it highly leveraged? Do they have equity? If they have equity, I'm always going to look at their situation and see if I can make a case that would benefit them to involve them in some of the financing. Think about it. If I could get a seller involved in 30 or 40% of the acquisition price on most any deal, and if I can present why that's better for them to do it this way versus the get all cash, pay tax on the cash, et cetera, et cetera. If I can show them how that's a better way, now I'm only going to have to go get 60 or 70% of the money somewhere else, even if I only involve them in that much. And so the raising of capital, right? Using your own capital. You've got a savings account, and there it is. That money got there, and you earned it, and you've paid tax on it. To use after-tax dollars of your own money to buy real estate is just, I couldn't even conceive of that. I don't truly. Deal structuring is about how to structure things to where your own invested capital is at a minimum. That's leverage. ROI, return on investment, is always a function. You can't figure that out unless you enter how much of my own capital have I put in this. If you haven't put any in, whatever the return is, it's infinite because you didn't put any in. So we've got to learn ways of doing that is minimizing the use of our own capital. If I do put capital in of my own money, I pay myself for that investment. I literally, from a cash flow perspective, pay myself at 12% an annum, 1% a month of that. I'm going to make sure that property is paying me to put my own money in. Because people say, oh, I got this much cash flow, but if you bought the cash flow and you're not paying for it, everything pencils with enough money down that you're not needing a return on. That doesn't make sense, right? That isn't even finance. That's just basic logic. Okay, but then let's take it outside of the seller world. Do you know how many billions of dollars are out there right now invested in institutions at 3 to 5%? And what does money want when you think about it? Money wants a return. Money wants collateral. You want to know that something's backing their money. If somebody doesn't pay, they've got some collateral. And money's wanting customer service. It's wanting excellent customer service. If I can provide all of that better than where money currently is at, I'm providing a great service for people. There's a whole bunch of the world that has money in retirement plans. Somebody else is investing their money, or they've gotten real proactive and put it in a self-directed account. But in self-directed accounts, half the people with money in self-directed accounts, they don't do the directed part. They just pay the fees for the custodian every year, and it sits there, and it's somehow better than not with somebody else investing it because they've been losing principal. At least it's not losing principal. And so that's the strategy. Wow. I couldn't even begin to tell you how many millions of dollars I've borrowed from individuals who have capital in a self-directed IRA account. Because what am I giving them? Through their direction of investment, I'm giving them return, collateral, customer service. And so when we start looking at money as like a commodity, now let's go back to the deal itself, the property, what you've got. That becomes the magnet for money, or it will repel money. It's your job to create an acquisition that attracts money, right? That it has cash flow every month to pay for the money, that it has an upside bigger picture associated with it, expandability, that it is in a perfect location. Now, Dr. Shadow would say that the story of that property is compelling. It's compelling. Oh my God, look at where this is at. It's right next door to this amazing building. It's a block away from the art museum. It's this, it's that. Story creates demand. Story creates value. Romance creates value. Let me prove it to you. Here's a lot on a street. It's zoned exactly like the one right next door. And here are two buildings. One's a turn-of-the-century 1926 gorgeous building, and the other's a 1958 flat-roofed walk-up Tom Bodette, I'll leave the light on. Now, their net operating income on these two assets are exactly the same. Exactly the same. The NOI is exactly the same of these two assets. The lot size is the same. The street's the same. The parking's the same. The area's the same. The school district's the same. Everything's the same of these two assets. But one of them is going to sell at a 4 cap and the other's going to sell at an 8 cap. Why? Romance, beauty, story. Oh my God, this one is so beautiful. Look at the trim on that turret on the roof versus look at this flat, hot tar roof that looks like somebody built that building in 2 minutes. But the net operating, now see, this is where income approach to value would say, oh, NOI divided by cap rate equals value. Why is there a different cap rate? Because cap rate is a measure of risk. And if you're buying something in demand that's beautiful, that's amazing, you're taking less risk. And if you want less risk, you're going to pay for it. And if you want to be crazy and think you can rent out this crappy looking building and this and that and deal with the people who are drawn to it, you better get a hell of a deal because you're going to earn it. You're going to earn it. This is where numbers understood correctly to their meaning are a liberal art, not a technical skill. They have to be understood in a liberal art way. Not just the message, but the meaning. Your real estate becomes the magnet. The story of what you've got becomes the magnet to money. And I'm telling you, money, private money, is an orphan child right now walking around crying for mom. It's everywhere looking for a great place to land and a great person to manage their funds to get them in the game. And then you treat your private investors like blue ribbon investors. Every quarter you take them out to lunch. Every quarter you bring the leather binder with their name embossed on the cover and you open it up and you go through. Here's the property. Here's the spreadsheet. Here's the income, the expense, the insurance binder showing you as lost payee. Here's your note, your deed of trust. Here's your this, here's your that. And then you say, and let me ask you, Alvin, how are your other investments comparing to this one? How's your other money manager doing that you can never get on the phone? And that kind of customer service will get them to say, listen, could you handle this? And pretty soon you're their money manager. Okay, first the seller, then many sources of private funds, deal structuring using leverage. There you go. Best I can do in a short period of
time. That was amazing. And just to reiterate, I mean, it really is true. I thought it sounds, but it's true. Greg told me once, just go get a first position loan. I thought that's way too much money. And it was there. It was him just telling me, and I've done seller carry and it's a win-win. So yeah, it's mindset, I think.
You created that garage though, to make it easy to get what you needed. This is deal structuring. I don't structure a deal that goes, okay, well, there it's all structured. Now my next step is nearly impossible. No, I'm going to create a scenario where the next thing I have to do is not just reasonable, it's easy. Because again, this is understanding what is money looking for. And your leverage always is at point of acquisition. These people want to sell something. I'm a buyer, but I want to structure something correctly from an entrepreneurial perspective that also I can show gets you from point A to point B. Maybe a different route than you thought you would take, but isn't that the way of things? There's traffic here. There's no traffic. This route's a better route for you to go. And when you put that proposition in the language of your audience, using the metaphors, similes, the tempo, the words, the everything of your audience, it's as if they're talking to themselves. That's the art form. Left and right brain. This is one of those amazing undertakings that you've got to have both of those. And the better you get at both of those, the more results you get.
And that right there, Greg, is what I never, that art form, it's not treated like an art form in most courses, most training. It's just like bad marketing, wholesaling, flipping.
Yeah. Oh, it's a, hey, here's my offer, take it or leave it. And you send out 1,000 letters and somebody's going to say, okay, I guess so. What have you done? Really? Have you really won the prize? Are you really the prince on the white horse, or did somebody just desperately need a ride home? I've never bought a property in foreclosure in my life. and because this idea that I've got to go toward the broken and the desperate and the hurting and the bankrupt and the divorced and all these adversity lists to go find my real estate. No, I go to the location I want to own real estate and I find out who owns it and I invest in them. And I might write them letters every quarter for 15 years. I might rake their leaves every Friday for 4 years, and they don't even know why I'm showing up. I just saw that your leaves needed raking. How are you today? Who are you? I'm Greg. We've met. I just saw these leaves. I'm just going to be raking them and listen. Hey, I know how busy you are. You've got a lot going on. You own other properties besides this one. Just have a great day. By the way, if you ever are thinking of selling this building, I just want to keep it nice for my future. Who the hell are you? You want different results. You better start doing things differently. I've always been weird. Hey, like I said, I've been told 1,000 times I just look at things differently. Guess what? They happen to work in this particular sport. We all have our verse in the powerful play. I don't know anything about most things, but buying investment grade real estate, aviation, that I know something about. So we deliver your verse. You're doing it. You've forgotten more than anybody knows about midterm rentals in your market. You're an expert. What's wrong with being an expert? I think that's pretty cool.
And I just have to say, there's not every other day I get a call. I don't know why I called you. I just got your letter, and it works, and it's a very different conversation. I think we're trained on going after this distress sandwich of divorce and behind on taxes, and it's an awful conversation. Maybe on paper they should be distraught. They don't want to sell, but when you get someone that's just, you've sent them a nice, thoughtful letter, you're not badgering them. It's such a different experience, and it's a conversation, and it's for anyone that's done cold calling or sent out the other kind of marketing, sell my house fast.
Oh, I couldn't imagine. You're one of 1,000 other buzzards circling that got the same notice of default list, the same this, the same that, and these people are inundated with that. Do I want to really join that parade? No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. You'll also find that when people own real estate in awesome locations, there's very little foreclosure going on in those areas. And the reason is that if they ever get behind and life happens, and hey, it happens to everybody. Hey, plenty of life's happened to me. I get it. But if they get behind, or if they have a tough situation, they can make one phone call and sell their real estate. You just want to be the one phone call they make. I've had people die, literally die, and before they died, handed 15 years worth of letters to their estate attorney and say, hey, by the way, looks like I'm going here, and you're going to have to be messing with my stuff. So this particular one, I don't know this guy. I've never returned his letters, but man, he really wants this building. So would you call him first after you get it appraised, after you do what you got to do? Just give him the first call, would you? Because the guy's written me letters, like 60 of them over 15 years. And then you get the call from the estate attorney. It says, hey, I'm following through with instructions. You get the first shot. And isn't that what we want? People say, how in the world did you get to buy this? Well, my question is, have you ever wanted something so damn bad that you just pissed on every bush on that corner for years and claim that you're going to own it? And you do what it takes. Do what it takes. How badly do you want it? That resolve. I love that word, resolve. How high does the hurdle have to be before you tap out? Mm-hmm. Because it's the one thing we can control. We say when we quit. We say when we give up. We say when it's too hard. And when you learn to love what most people won't tolerate, you're in your happy place when it gets ugly. That's when because you're all alone. Mm-hmm. All the competition's gone. You're the only one standing. See, you win by default. There's nobody there because it's too damn hard. What a way to win the gold. Nobody else showed up. I'm still here. And if you're not talented, and if you don't have an NBA contract or a Celine Dion voice or a Bill Gates brainiac mind, you got to figure out how to win some way. So be the last one standing. Be the one that's there before anybody gets there and the one that's just getting warmed up when everybody's leaving. Go against the grain and do it your own way for your own resolution, your own resolve. And then you get results. Everybody goes, how the hell did you do that? I don't know. Nobody else was here. I just showed up.
And just when you think you're just tapped out, then that's when the magic happens.
It always happens.
You know? When you're too busy to take the call.
Oh, yeah. Best deal you'll ever get. Always happens at the worst time. There's a reason for that. I've studied it. Providence doesn't hand out the good stuff to just anybody. We're going to see what you're made of. There's a little screening process, right? Right. Yep. This is the good stuff. So how badly do you want it? Are you going to be able to figure it out? You'll be able to calm your nerves, compartmentalize, take a deep breath, figure out how to get what you don't have. Are you going to? Because you're going to have to do that if you want this. Pretty soon, it becomes you. It's who you are. It's what you do. And you do it quietly, and you don't need applause. You don't need anybody else to see. That's philosophy, Shona. You know. Mm-hmm. That's our belief system in play. And if we don't know ourselves, hell, we're never going to get anywhere. You got to know who you are. And we get to decide who we are. That's the good news. We're not a chair or some table. We can become and change into who we want to be. Yeah.
This is mindset is so critical. I think we know that, though I don't think we practice it. We hear it, but we don't internalize that. And if you think there's no deals, you can't find real estate, everything is whatever, well, guess what? Right? That's the truth for you. So you have to.
You're right. That's your truth then. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Greg, my gosh, I feel like this could go on for hours. Thanks everyone.
Well, the good news is we get to continue this all the time because we do work together. So thank you for allowing me to chat with this following and influence that you have, Shona. And I look forward to seeing you on March 2nd up here at the hangar, and you and yours. I'll give it my very best on that day, as you always do. Yeah, please let me know how I can help. Anybody has any questions for me or comments or anything that I need to know, 206-226-7777. Okay.
Thank you, Greg. Really appreciate your time and your inspiration. Thank you.
Privilege. privilege.
talk to
And I'm
you
going to
soon.
see you in Nashville too.
That's right.
All right, my dear. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. We'll
All
talk
right.
soon. Okay.
Sounds good. Good night.
Bye now.